everyone. Hey Rooney, excited?
I'm so excited about these podcasts.
Oh, and today we have a special guest, an icon in Sub 2.
Yes, her name is Tracy Gunn. She's been a trailblazer so far. She's also in Owners Club, and she is about to.
Reveal her journey, and this is an exciting one. Yes, they've all been exciting, haven't they?
Yeah,
We're
and as a
so
matter of fact,
enjoying this.
we've gotten such great reviews on the ones we've had so far. It can only get better from here.
So stay with us, keep watching.
Like, subscribe, share, and make sure you turn on that notification bell. That way, you will never miss a podcast.
Excellent. Hi Tracy, welcome.
Thank
Welcome, Tracy.
you. Thanks for having me, guys. Nice to see you.
Yes, this is our From Island Dreams to Real Estate podcast.
Woo.
We are so excited to have you here today.
We're excited for everything. I mean, we're excited for our audience because we've been getting such great reviews. I think this one is going to really help us to take off. I'm excited to have this conversation with you, Tracy.
Yes.
And it's always better when there's two Tracys in the building. That's kind of what that.
Tracy with an E and Tracy without an E.
Yep, that's right. That's okay. I mean, I prefer the without, but that's okay. We still are fabulous. There's not a lot of us in the world. You know, when was the last time you saw a child named Tracy? Never.
True.
That's true.
Not in a long time. We're all around the same age
Yes.
in our, amazing middle years, we'll say.
Right.
That's
right.
it.
That's nice. I like
So,
that.
well, thanks for having me, guys. I'm so excited to just talk about what we're all doing. I love it.
Yeah, so Tracy, tell us about your journey, your real estate journey.
Okay, so I mean, my real estate journey kind of came after my business journey, right? They kind of dovetailed into each other, and they really are dependent on each other. Because I haven't gone full on 100% into real estate. You know what? It probably would be more fruitful, right? I would probably not have as much stress. Because, the nice part about real estate is you don't really have employees per se. Employees tend to be my biggest headache.
Everywhere.
But
That's national.
anyway, so I own candy stores. So that was my first business. Was a stay-at-home mom. Life kind of got weird and happened, and I started my candy store as like my kids went to school. I was a homeschool mom. And then I had my candy store, and then I opened restaurants, and then COVID happened. All of a sudden, when you're used to a certain amount of cash flow, like when somebody's renting your apartment and they stop paying and the money stops, and you're like, gosh, now what? Right? And like, because you're dependent on that. Even if you're not making a ton, you're still depending on it to cover. Right? And in restaurants specifically, that is like the way it works. Like you use your money from this weekend to pay last week's bills. Like just that's how it rolls it forward. And who would have thought in this world that they would just say, "Oh, we're going to shut everybody down for 2 weeks," right? Which turned into my big restaurant turned into 6 weeks, and then that would actually the one restaurant was 6 weeks, the other one wound up being 4 months, and it's like, what do you do? First of all, right, the shock of that, like, and you have a moment of like, okay, am I going to be okay? Is everything over? Because when you own businesses or even real estate, you know how it is. Like it's always a roll of the dice. You don't know how it's going to go. You don't know if it's going to go sideways. You don't know. You hope. And the optimist in all of us, like we were talking about manifesting the other day, about how we're thinking so positive and we see the world in such a positive, but doesn't mean things don't happen that you have to deal with, right? And so COVID was one of those, but that was like a world thing. But how do you adapt, especially as restaurants? I think restaurants and retail were the biggest hit. It was everywhere, right? And so we all suffered in different ways. But smart business person has a moment, allows the moment, and then figures out how to adapt, right? And so my husband, who's like a 40 plus year builder, contractor, construction guy, did side work like repairs, extensions, like all that kind of stuff for people. But he never advertised for work. It was always, oh, he went from this job to this job to this job. Well, all of a sudden he's home for 6 weeks. There's no jobs, right? Because that's always what happened. And so, and people weren't letting people in their houses, right?
Yeah.
They were like, nah, come on in, stranger, right? Remember when we were putting our groceries in the garage for four
Right.
days
Yeah.
And mail.
and wiping it down? Like, we didn't want to touch anything. We did. And so they certainly weren't going to let my builder husband in their house, right?
Right.
And so, so we were like, what do we do? And so at that time, he said, what if we built something to help us fund, right? Because a lot of people were leaving the cities. We're in New Hampshire, and so it's very rural where we are. And a lot of people from Boston and New York were coming to not be in the city. Because I think, are you guys in Atlanta?
Yeah, we're
Yes.
in
Yeah.
Atlanta.
So, like, it was scary for people in the cities because, like, you're just isolated and you might have had the amenities, maybe, but, a lot of people, because we were scared of each other to some degree, right? They wanted to go to the country where they didn't see anybody.
Yes.
Right.
And so we were like, well, what if we built something that would have income that's not dependent on people coming into my store or in my restaurant or staff? And so thankfully, like his skill set and I had some money in the bank that are like, let's try this, right? And so that's kind of how we started. We always thought, well, maybe, right, we'll have some rentals, maybe someday. But COVID made it real for us. And I think it made it real for a lot of people. And so we built we started with building a tree house in our yard,
Yeah. Wow.
a treehouse that we rent out on Airbnb. And of course, back then, that was July of 2020 when we started that. All of the lumber went crazy. Everything went from like $2 an a 2x4 to like $8 and you couldn't get it. There were fights at Home Depot over it and all that stuff. And so we started with the treehouse, and we also at the same time, when we kind of hit a stall point with supplies and things, we started a midterm, what we would call midterm rental in our basement. Because again, there's two of us in this big 4-bedroom house. And that's kind of how we started. We were like, well, let's see how this works. And then we kind of just started exploring. Couple months into it, like I don't know, I would say, not as much in Atlanta, although you have had snow this year. When winter hits in New Hampshire, everything we continue on, but it's not as robust, we'll say that, right? People are kind of hunkering down, they want to be home and warm. And so we started to think about like what else could we do while we're waiting for some of the supplies. And we happened to find a home that was on the market for 62,000, which, on some level seems like a lot of money, but on the other hand is really not a lot of money for a house.
Right.
That sounds good to us.
Right? Exactly. Well, you're in Atlanta. So, but, I had met one of my former contacts was now an agent, and she said, you should think about this. It's in my husband Gavin's hometown. He knows everybody there. He knows the area. Why not try? And so we were like, went back and forth, and he was kind of not into it. But then he was like, all right, let's do it. And so I wrote a check for 62,000, was the biggest check I ever written. And I was like, like coming off of COVID and all of the unknown to
Right.
write that check. And I
Yeah.
justified it in my head with, okay, my Jeep is 60,000 and I'm driving that around and that's losing money all the time every day, right? I pay, I don't know, $50 a day just for the privilege of, right, driving it. And this is a home at least with a title, value. Even if it burns to the ground, the land has value. Like, what's the worst? And that's why I said to my husband, what's the worst case scenario here? Let's hedge our bets. Let's at least know, let's prepare for the worst and expect the best. Again, as somebody who's done this his whole life, I trusted him implicitly. Okay, tell me what's the worst case. Like for me, I would think, okay, foundation. What if the foundation's terrible? What do we do? And he's like, we fix it. I'm like, you can do that? He's like, yes. Okay. That in my head was the worst thing that could happen.
I would
Right.
think that too.
Right? And he's like, nope, it's fixable. You jack it up, you prep this, you do. I was like, okay. See, I've got a good asset here. So, all right. So I just banked it and I was like, all right, let's just do it. So I kind of handle the business side, the money, the organizing, the title, the buying, selling. Not his forte. He's not really a paperwork guy, right? But he handles the complete rehab. He orchestrates the people. He likes to talk to me about it because he likes to share. But and he knows everybody, but he just goes and does, right? And I kind of keep him on track. And so we tried it. And I'm going to say it was not all easy.
Mm-hmm. That,
Working with your spouses or families not always easy,
I
right?
know.
As you're sitting on the couch together, right? But but these are the people we love and these are the people we that matter. And so, we make it work, right? And you're not gonna hopefully not divorce, right? Or not speak over it, right? So we figured that out. But what happened over time, right? And then so now he's running three projects. And so it was like, how does he balance? But anyway, long story short, it kind of like we bought it for 62. We put 30 into it. It was a complete remodel. It had water. Someone had moved out and not turned off the water and the pipes burst. And so he fixed everything, replaced everything. Thankfully, no structural foundational issues. Upgraded some of the electric, did all the things. And we wound up, so we were all in for about 95 and we sold it for 180. And I went,
That's
right. And I went, wow,
I know. Now you got the bug.
you got to sell a lot of candy to get to to 80,000 a profit. So I was like, let's do that again, right? Like, and so now we're like, get the bug, right? You have one win and you're like, let's do this all the time. And so kept with the stores, kept with the reopening of the restaurants, kept with the building. We finished the tree house in 21. We finished the midterm rental. So now we have those going. We sold that. Our next one was an auction. We had never done an auction. This is a cool story. It's like I sent my husband, I was working, and I said, go see what this is all about. And there were four people there, including my husband, and that were there to bid. And so he calls me and he says, okay, these guys are saying something weird and I don't know if this is real. So I was like, okay. So I talked to the guys and they're like, this is the deal. He's like, you're here to bid, so are we. The bank wants to get what they want to get, but we do this different. We bid 1,000 over what they're asking and none of us bid anything else and they accept it. He goes, and then we're going to go to Dunkin' Donuts and have our own auction. And I was like, is this a real thing?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
And so we were like, my husband's like, I don't know about
So
this.
you
And I'm like,
at the auction?
yeah, so we did a second auction together without the bank. So this
Wow.
was my first entry into creative because what they were doing is so one person bid, won the contract. Then we went to Dunkin' Donuts. We all brought our checkbooks. Everyone was there to buy a property. And then we all put in a hat. The guy who ran it said, "Okay, everybody put what was your max you were planning on paying today for this property?"
Yes.
So I think I put 75 because again, the bid was for 45. That's what we got it for. And we all sitting there. So I lived in the town or around the town. The other guys drove from an hour plus away. So we put it all in the hat and they're like, this is the way this works. We're all going to read off what the highest one is. The highest one wins, and you pay the difference between what we committed to the bank to the three of us.
Right.
So everybody wins. Somebody gets the house, the rest get paid for being here today.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so I was like, is this legal? This, like, because I had no idea about wholesaling, contract signing, like, I had no idea. So it was a whole trust thing. And my husband is sitting there and he's not as optimistic. We'll say that. And so he's like, I don't think this is a good idea. And I'm like, well, I mean, so we did it, and these old guys and me and my husband like sitting there because I write the checks. So we're like, okay, so we put it in, and um, we won or lost, right? Like we had the thing. So I wrote each of them a $10,000 check that day, and they gave me the contract, and I'm like freaking out because is this a real thing? Like, do
So,
people
so
do
let me ask
this?
you this, Tracy. Who won it at the auction itself?
The
Was it
one of the guys
that?
won the
So that
contract.
trust this guy to
So
give
I'm trusting him that this is a real thing that people can just sign over contracts.
you
I
Right.
had no idea. And I'm like, these guys are like, listen, I understand, but this is the way it works. Like, do you see? I'm going to sign it over to you. I promise. They gave me all their cards. So I'm like, okay, like, so scared. But you know what? It was real. And so now my husband, now he has access. So what they usually do is whoever wins the contract, they give them access or whatever. Like we could go, we were at the property, so he unlocked the door. So that way, when we won, he's like, now this is, they were so nice to us, these three guys, but they also each left with $10,000. So how nice were they really? But they were like, this is what you need to do. You need to go back there. You need to unlock one of the doors or windows so you can get back in because it's going to take a month or so to close. You need to contact the company that's running this auction, tell them who that got assigned to you so they know who to talk to. You need to let them know wherever they're doing escrow, send the paperwork. He goes, and then you don't have to tell them, but go and start work. Clean out the house, do whatever you're going to do. If you're going to close on this, go start. Don't lose a month because of their nonsense.
Right.
So we did. So my husband went there, he cleaned it out. We waited that month. And during that time, one of the guys, like in the neighborhood, kept walking by. And my husband likes to chat, you know. This guy was a plumber. He's like, "What do you want for this?" And he's like, "I don't know. My wife thinks we can get 150, but I'm not sure." Right? So we're all in for 75, keep in mind. So, and he's like, "But I don't know, maybe we'll fix it, maybe we'll flip it. I don't know." So the guy's like, "Well, let me know if you want to sell it." So he comes, he brings his wife, and he's like, "I want to buy it." So we closed like, I don't know, February 2nd. And then 4 days later, we resold it for 150. So we made 75,000 just for cleaning out the house.
Oh my word.
You didn't have to do any work at all.
Just
Oh,
cleaning it out. We just cleaned out because there was junk in it. But that was it. So we made like, and we were like, okay, now we've had two good experiences. Let's keep the momentum, right? And so then it's like, okay, what does this, what do we were just figuring it out as we were
yeah.
going, right? And trusting people, trusting
Right,
the process, trusting each other
right.
after a very uncertain time. So it's kind of like, ah. So, I mean, that kind of just started everything. And
Wow.
so, I mean, I think it's a pretty cool auction story, especially because, like, they were happy, we were happy. They stayed in touch. One of the guys, he put us on his list. Every time there was an auction, he'd send me a list of where the auctions were. Like, this was like a great contact. My broker was excited because she is the one who sent me it, so she got money. Everybody got paid, and
Yeah.
everybody was happy. And funny stories, that house, we saw it recently on the market for 100,000 again. And the guy who bought it did all this stuff, but never really finished. You know, some
Oh,
people are starters, but not
yeah.
finishers.
Yeah.
So we reached out now that we know a little bit more. We were like, hey, we have two options for you. Number one, we'll buy it. Number two,
The one that you sold for 80,000,
no, the one we sold for 150, the auction one.
he
He
put it
sold
on
it,
the market
he
for
was
one.
trying to sell for 50,000 less than he bought it for, even though he had held it for almost 2 years and done work to it. Because he
Wow.
just was tired. You know, you get burnt out. You're like, those deals are out there. So we saw it and I was like, so I said, do you want, we could do one of two things. Number one, you could hold it, we'll fix it and finish it, and we'll sell and profit together.
Right.
Innovation.
Or we'll just buy it. Like, and he took it off the market. I think he was embarrassed, right? Ego gets involved, right?
Right.
But we were like, oh my gosh, imagine if we could now profit again.
Right.
That'd be amazing. So yeah, and the next one, like we did another one after that. That was a hard money. We never had used hard money before. We'd always just used our cash, right? And that's kind of like one of the best parts about being in the community is that you realize you've done everything in small business too, right? You've always just done everything yourself. You've kind of muscled your way through, you've scraped and saved and done the thing, right? And then you realize, oh my gosh, it didn't have to be so hard, right? That there's other options. And that was our first experience. I didn't have a great experience with the hard money, but I knew I couldn't do it without it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that one was a horse farm. We got it for 200. We put about 100 into it. And then we listed at 650, but that was in late, I think it was 22, when the interest rates all of a sudden went crazy. Like went from 2 and 3% to like 6, and everybody was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And so that one was a little, we had hoped to exit at 650. We exited at 475. Still good profit.
Yeah.
And after holding it for 6 months, we just wanted to be done, right? And then, we were on our fifth one. My husband hurt himself, so we've kind of been in pause. But again, we wound up in the community. We wound up just like thinking, like, how can we do better? How can we do this smarter? How can we learn more about what we're doing and not just keep figuring it out ourselves? And that's kind of how we wound up here. And there's so much to learn. There's so much you can do.
Yes. Yes.
It's crazy. And then even just so we first joined Gator because we had money in the bank from the flip. So we were like, oh, well, we could just, while my husband was recovering from his shoulder, we had to wait a couple months for shoulder surgery and then recovery. He wasn't going to go do the work. So we said, let's maybe see if we can make money this way instead, right? You're getting
Yes.
older.
So who
And
found Faith's community? Was it him or you?
I signed him up.
How did you find out about Gator?
I wound up seeing something online. He had just recently opened up Gator. Like it
Mm-hmm.
had been closed for a while, and
Yeah.
he was offering it. And it was August of
24.
24?
Yeah.
No, 23. August of 23.
23, yes.
Time flies.
Yes.
It does go, right? It goes
Yeah.
so fast. It feels, I mean, crazy to think that COVID was 5 years ago.
Right?
Right.
Anyway, but so yeah, so I signed him up and I was like, this is a way to use the money. So maybe like while you're recovering, listen, learn. He likes Facebook, like get in there, see what you can do. And then he said, well, let's join sub two. So now we joined sub two as well. And a couple months later, January, he's like, here, I think you should do this. I don't really like listening to all these classes.
Okay.
So he's like, you're better at this part. So he handed it over to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm running businesses, doing all these things. I'm like, I don't really have time, but we already get paid. So I was like, all right, let me try, see what we're doing, right? So, and then I signed up for Squad Up. I won a day with Pace. I'm going actually next week.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and then went to Squad Up and joined Owners Club and met you guys and like all this and really just got some momentum forward. Now, have we done 100 deals this year? No. Like I'm very focused on my business area,
Mm-hmm.
but we did do a sub two that first year. We did learn a lot. Went to owners club and all that stuff, and really figured out like okay, we did another flip and we're on another flip. But like the idea here is just like okay, what are we going to do? How do you find your lane? And that I think in the community is kind of hard because there's
Mm-hmm.
so much. And I think, and which is one of the reasons I think with Pace is, well, we think he's a genius for a lot of reasons, but
Mm-hmm.
he really has encouraged all of us in there. If you've done anything, you're a little bit ahead, reach back and pull the other person forward,
Yes.
right? So if there's somebody new and they're overwhelmed, like my first sub two, the guys from New England, like they got on a call with me and worked it, like ran the numbers
The
because I
sub
had never done.
Guys.
no, 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 sub two guys.
Oh, the top two guys.
Yeah, this like well, some of the guys from New England, yeah, for sub two, they were like I was on a Thursday night call with them, and it's like I think I have a deal. I'm not sure. I've never done this. It's in South Carolina where I'm gonna be, right? So like, can anybody like I want to talk? They're like, we'll reach after. We'll go through all the numbers with you, and I was like, really? Like how
Yeah.
nice. So like at 9 o'clock on a Thursday night, we're sitting on a Zoom and they're kind of reviewing the numbers and talking about the positives and the negatives and like what to think about. Ultimately, it's my decision, right? It's
Right.
my due diligence, not his or theirs. But how nice, like to have somebody to ask questions, right? How nice and generous. They didn't have to do that,
Right.
right? And so, I was super grateful. And that was John and Santiago from New England. They reached out their partners and they helped me. And then I felt confident, like no matter what happens, I'll be able to ask questions. There's
Did you
somebody.
go that sub too, or did you sell it?
So I took it over sub two, and it was actually a perfect scenario. It was somebody else's sub two that they had tried to wrap a few times, it didn't work out, and they just wanted to be done. Luciano from the community. I don't know if you know Luciano, but anyway, he
Yeah.
was just kind of like, I don't want to do this anymore, whatever. And so, but we had bought a motorhome. I had this dream about traveling and
Yeah.
doing my business consulting from wherever and not being tied to New Hampshire. My
Mhm.
grandkids are in Charlotte. I knew we need a place to live, but we also wanted to travel. So we invested some of our money from one of the flips into at least the down payment for a motorhome, that drivable one that we could take around the country. And then when I knew that I was opening candy stores, I was like, this is perfect. Like it's right where I want to be. We have a place to live. It had a double lot. We were able to put the RV on the second lot. It
Mhm.
had a big pad for that. And then we were able to rent out the house or then do a lease option. And so, yeah, we still have it. It's been almost in May, it'll be a year, but the RV's here. Now we have an eviction in process. So that's a whole thing. So we're learning, right?
Right, the
But
journey.
other people I met in the computer, like the community, so I moved my RV because it's eviction. It's not a comfortable situation. So I parked my RV and I'm staying with another girl from Sub 2 because she's like, just stay with me. Now I had taken her. She met you guys at community camp,
Yeah.
Angela, but I met her in the community. So like, just I don't know. I mean, about being in a place, whether you use it to its fullest, like some people do, whether you break off and just take pieces of it or just connect,
Yeah.
Fantastic community.
right? That you just don't know what's coming. So, like a couple weeks ago, this same friend, so that's a funny story. So, like, I had won a day with Pace, but I also won a trip to community camp from being an owners club.
Right.
And at the last minute, my husband and I were going to drive the RV out. I'm like, this is our big road trip, like to Montana. I mean, how from Charlotte, like, this is a big trip.
Yeah.
But together we can do it. Probably will not be all smooth sailing, but we're going to do it.
Mhm.
And then the last minute, he was like, I don't know if it's a good idea. And so I was like, I guess I'm not going. And then, like, I started to have FOMO. And I was like, well, I mean, it's a once in a lifetime. When am I going to Montana
Right.
next? Right? And so that's how I met you, is like, I was like, I think I want to come. I don't have a room. I don't know how I'm getting there. Anybody? And you were like, well, you can stay with me. I was like, you're so nice. So, but at last minute, I had met like the week before, I'd gone to a meetup, sub two meetup, and I met my friend Angela, and we hit it off. I'm like, we're like kindred souls. And I said, the Saturday before community camp, I was like, what are you doing this week? She's like, why? And I said, well, I want to go to community camp. You want to come? And she's like, don't tempt me. And I'm like, well, I mean, how like quick are you to make a decision? She's like, not. I'm like, well, just think about it. So that day we booked flights and we left the next day. And
Right.
we had only met the week before and we shared a room. We spent a whole week together, like close in a room, like, but that's, I mean, but she is now like my partner in kind of all things here in Charlotte.
That's awesome.
Like, so I don't know. I mean, so that's kind of like my whole, that's kind of where we are. And even in Owners Club, like being in the sub two's big, Gators, it's all just so big.
Yes. Mhm.
And we're all busy and we're all just doing our things, right? But to have a few people to connect, to be able to lead, to be able to help, to be able to serve and move it forward, right?
Yeah.
That it's coming around. Like, we finally figured out our lane. We talked a little bit about like how it's hard to pick where you're going, what's right. So I think we decided on co-living in Charlotte. Pad splits opening here. It's like they only have 35 houses in all of Charlotte here, which is nothing.
Yeah.
So they're looking for leaders here. So they were like, "We got you." So me and Angela are going to kind of like try to head that up and lead that and get that moving. We have a team of people who are calling. We're all going to kind of go in on our first house together, so we all learn. There's
Right.
5 or 6 of us, and then we can all do it on our own if we want to.
Yeah.
But like together we can do it. I
Of
mean,
course.
right? Together we can move it forward. Together we could find the money. Together we could find the people to help us. My husband can do the building. Together we have someone who's great at closing, someone who's good at organizing, somebody who wants to be leading the way, charging the way forward, right? You always have like that connector, right? That wants to plan the party, right?
Yeah.
So all those pieces they're falling into place here in Charlotte. And the one piece that's not falling into place yet is that my husband is still in New Hampshire because he does not want to live in Charlotte. He does
Wow.
not.
So
So
where
I'm like, okay,
are you in
Pat,
Charlotte now?
he's up there in New Hampshire. I'm here. Like at Christmas, I hadn't seen him for 2 months because I was very focused on Christmas in Charlotte, and he was up there to getting our flip ready and stuff and taking care of our house and our Airbnb. And he runs errands for the candy store up there. But, like, I just know this is the time, right? And
Yeah.
he's a Vermont guy. People who they love what they love.
Yeah.
The idea of living in a city is not appealing to him at all.
Right. Yeah.
Living with me is appealing, but not necessarily here.
Right.
So we're working out the details of that. Like, because I said, well, what if you could come for just 2 weeks at a time, right?
Right.
Have your fix and come, spend 2 weeks. And a 2 week turnaround for like converting a pad split's a pretty doable number for somebody
Yeah.
who knows how to do it, right?
Right.
So I'm like, I think we found our perfect scenario for
Yeah.
moving forward, right? We find a big house, we change up all the rooms. You can go back to New Hampshire and sit on your mountain for a little while, and then we'll get the next one. You come back, right? So we just figured that out like last week. But I'm like, you know what? I think we've just got to figure out, right? There's always a way. And you know what? Who knows what next year will look like?
Right.
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 We might be in that RV all over the country in Montana. Who knows?
But co-living is the way to go. I mean, you can't go wrong with that right now.
No, especially because you know what? Who's living in these 2,500 square foot houses? Like,
Right.
who's living there? Someone who got divorced and she got it in the divorce, right? Or someone who's their kids are grown and have moved out and it's their childhood home. But that's a lot of upkeep. That's a
Exactly.
lot. Like, it's gone up so much. And like, do you want to spend the rest of your life cleaning this house? Probably
Yeah.
not, right? There's a ton on market in Charlotte. So we're like, you know what? We found our groove, right? Because
Right.
it's hard to narrow what you want to do.
Yeah. We're coming to Charlotte. We're gonna look in Charlotte for a pad split.
I love it. Well, how about you guys be our partner? You could be our capital partner just to get in. Like, hopefully, we'll negotiate a great creative deal, but hopefully, you guys could be our partner, kind of like getting it going. And then we'll all just be partners.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Absolutely. We're all in.
I love it. I mean, there was somebody who came in. We had a pad split meeting the other night, and there was a gentleman, him and his friend flew in from Atlanta. They have a lot of pad splits in Atlanta, and they wanted to understand because they are coming in and they're going to do it big. And I was like, ooh, I want to be their friends,
Right.
right? But I mean, I think you're right. I think it's the way to go. It's the safest way to go,
Mm.
right? It's a
Yeah.
proven model. You don't have to squeeze every penny. Sometimes it's worth paying for
For
the
the pad split umbrella, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
not only the umbrella, but their expertise, for their guidance, for their support,
Mm.
for all of the nonsense that you have to deal with, right?
Absolutely.
And I've kind of become cured from my one tenant. Like, because Airbnb, they come and go. That's a nice, right? They come, they go, right? You're not always making as much money as you could, but it's not, because it's not always full, but they come, they go. You have a cleaner, you're good. Midterm, that's 3 month stints, that's easy, right? They're moving on to the next job, that's easy, right? And most of them don't want to cause any fuss. They need a place to live because they need to be there, easy.
Mm.
The long term, goodness gracious, that is silly.
That-
I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay to tap out and be like, this is not for me, but I still want the long term benefit. I still
Yeah.
want the benefit of having 100 houses in my portfolio that are growing and appreciating and using the depreciation for all the offsets and right? And the cash flow for everybody. Like, I want all the things,
Yeah, we all do. Yep. Yep.
right? But without the hassle.
Headache. Right. The toilet.
So if you can figure that part out, that's kind of how I did my business. So the
I was going
theory,
to ask you about your business. I mean, I
yeah.
know you're gonna pitch, so go on. Let us know all about the business.
Okay, so is that okay? Sorry, I do talk a lot. But so basically, okay, a few years ago, right before COVID, actually, my daughter had a baby. So I was a grandma first time. Yes, I know, I'm a grandma. People are like, I don't believe it. I'm like, ah, thank you. Those are good genes. Thank you, Mom.
True.
Right. Well, it also helps to start young. So that helps too. But right. But so my daughter had a baby and I was like, it's amazing how something happens in your life that changes all your focus. Like I was like, at the time I had two candy stores and two restaurants and I was running all of them. I had 42 staff. They were doing okay. We were not making a lot of money, but it was more than covering itself. But I was working 18 hours a day because I didn't have enough income to hire full-time managers for all. So I had systems in place, but I was the engine. I went from one to the other every day. You know, it was a lot. And so I had that, and then I had this baby that was born, and I was like, I don't want to be here. And I don't want to do this. I looked around and I went, I don't want to do this anymore. Right? And I thought, how the heck do I get out of here? And so I thought, you know what? I'm just going to sell it. Right? They're running. I'm here, but I'm not running everything. I'm the engine that makes it keep going, right? But there's something I'll sell, right? That's most business owners. Like someday I'll sell it, right? So I was like, okay. I call the broker, he comes in, and that's scary. Like when you're like, oh, come look at the books,
Right.
right?
Right.
Come see my house, right? And you hear people say mean things about your wallpaper, right? Like that, it's just hard. And so it's like, come look under the hood. Don't
Yeah.
look in my junk drawer, like that kind of thing, right? So, but that's our businesses because we're busy doing them. Like they're not tidy. They're not perfect. There's a million things if we had time, even still, that we would do. But we don't have the time most of the time. We're like feeling fire to fire to fire. But anyway, so I had him come in and he looked at all of the businesses and he's like, you know what? There's not really anything worth selling here. You should just liquidate. And I was like, what? Like I was doing over 1 million in revenues. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, what? And he was like, yeah, I mean, it's not, just liquidate. If you want to be done, just liquidate and move on. And I was like, so I just kept it together, had my big girl moment, and I was like, okay, thank you. And he left. And so I had a little breakdown, as we're prone to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, and just woe is me. What am I doing? Why did I do all this? Right? Because I did all this thinking I'll invest, just like with children. I invest in you now and then you're going to pay me back later, whether by family, love, maybe you'll take care of me when I'm old. But like we invest in them and they grow up. That's what we do. And so I was like, I've invested in all of this. I've rolled the dice on me building these things thinking they're going to pay me back way much more than getting a job.
Right.
Right? And I'm like, and you're telling me I built something, nothing valuable? Like, that was awful.
Yeah.
Like, painful. And I cried. And then I started to think about it because the optimism always bubbles to the top. And I was like, you know what? Maybe he's right. Maybe, right? Because I didn't know anything about selling businesses. I didn't know anything about valuing businesses. I didn't know anything about that. I never thought about, which is crazy if you think about it, right? Because most business owners think someday I'm going to sell, but they never think about what that looks like and why. It's like renovating a house, not thinking about who's buying it. It's
Right.
silly, right? We would never do that in flipping, but yet somehow in business, we don't really think that far ahead.
Yeah.
And so, because we just think we have time. We always think we have time, right? And so, no, tomorrow's not promised to anybody, right? So like, but yet we still trust that it's going to be there. So anyway, so I just thought, you know what? Maybe he's right and maybe he's wrong. But I'm going to give myself 6 months. I can do anything for 6 months, right? Like, you could psych yourself up. I could last 6 more months. But I'm going to change and see if I can fix. If there are things that are broken that I don't understand, I'm going to fix it. And if in 6 months I haven't fixed it enough that anybody wants it, then I give myself permission to be done. Okay. So I made a deal with myself, right? I set a date and I set a target,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, okay, those are the two biggest things. Like I set a date, I set a target to aim for. And when you set a target like that, everything kind of comes into focus, right? It's like I just said we decided we're doing pad split. All the shiny objects are gone. For
Yeah.
this doesn't mean they won't show up, but we are very like this is what we're doing. When
Right.
you decide this is what we're doing, this is when we're doing it, and we're putting all our attention, it brings it all to, and that's what happened in my business. Like I just like zoop, this is what we're doing. Not more, not growing, not trying new things. No.
No.
Let's fix. Let's start the repair.
Right.
And let's repair for the buyer, whoever that might be. And so I learned a lot about business valuations, what makes a business valuable, what makes it transferable, what makes it sellable. And so I was like in my head, why didn't I think about this? Like I was so upset with myself because I feel like I'm pretty smart. I know some stuff. Like I built four businesses and they're running. Like I had had my candy store since 2006. So by that time it was like 13 years. Like it's not like I'm a newbie, right? And I don't know anything. Like why didn't I ever think about this?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Why didn't I ever set the intention or know at least the direction I was going, right?
Right.
More is not a direction, right? Like,
Right.
and so it just in the back of my mind. So as I fix things and learn things, I was like, people need to know this.
Yeah.
They need to like understand this is important, right? And you think it's common sense or you think that they know, but they don't.
They
Like,
do.
you know, 99% have zero plans for exit. Zero. So anyway, long story short, for my business, so my big restaurant, I had a 6,500 square foot restaurant. That was my biggest headache. So I took care of the big one first.
Yeah.
And in 3 months, somebody approached me and wanted to buy it. One
Wow.
of my customers. And I
Really?
was like, this worked. Like
Yeah.
putting it out there in the world, telling people that I'm prepping for exit. And exit can mean I don't want to be here all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to run without me because I want to be where my grandbabies are. I want to focus on other things. I want to do other things, right? I'd shifted. I didn't want to own restaurants anymore. I wanted to be able to go be grandma and have enough money to do that, right?
Right.
And over time, I was like, I want to help other business owners too. But in that, I was like, I don't want to be here. And I started talking about it. And one of my customers saw the changes and was like, would you sell to me? And I was like, are you kidding? And he was like, no, I want to buy. I've always dreamed of owning a restaurant, and I think this would be an amazing one. And I was like, wow.
Oh.
Like it's like winning the game, right?
Yeah.
Like you want to buy my
Or
business?
you
Amazing. So, especially after somebody told me it was not worth it,
right.
right?
Right.
And so that made me realize that like just by changing some strategic things in my business, all of a sudden it was desirable.
Right.
Yes.
Right? It's like a fix and flip, and you just fix the kitchen and the bathroom and paint, right? You don't need to change everything,
Right.
right? It's
Right.
you're doing it strategically with who might want this and
Mm-hmm.
what's important to them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and so that's what I did, and I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, like I went through, and I was like, oh my gosh, people need to know this. So I had a partner that was earning in at the candy store. She was going to take it over for me, so I had planned that. I had one other restaurant that I wasn't sure what I was going to do with, but the lease was up soon. But all of a sudden, I had my exit plan for all the businesses, everything lined up. And so, did it all work out? No. But that's life,
Wonderful.
right? So, where am I now? So, fast forward, we'll say this. My big restaurant that we were under contract and went through all the steps to close, he had his licenses, everything in place. And funnily enough, my landlord wouldn't sign the lease, which meant nothing could happen. So for 6 weeks, it was supposed to close February 2nd in 2020. You know where this is going.
Yeah.
6 weeks. The Thursday before they shut us down for COVID, my buyer came in and said, I offered them 4 months rent up front to just sign. I don't know what the problem is. I can't get them on the phone. It was a chain. I can't get them on the phone. They won't listen because we were attached to a hotel. So it was like built in business. And he's like, I don't know what else to do. And I said, I don't know. I'm just going to pray about it. It's coming. And, we heard things about COVID, but never in our wildest dreams did we think, oh, they're shutting us down, right? So we're just going on. Like everything's in place. My staff is aware, training, the transition, everything is in place. And Monday, so that was Thursday night, Monday at 5 p.m., the day before St. Patrick's Day, I owned an Irish bar, by the way. We get the news that we're shut down. And that's it.
Oh no.
Which it actually was such a blessing for him because he would have bought a business that he couldn't run.
But then, unfortunately for you, you're no
I
longer.
was stuck with a business. And eventually, what happened was I reopened after COVID, and then I knew we opened, and then my liquor license was up for renewal. It's a substantial amount of money. And I thought, are we going to be able to recoup our investment here? If I can't operate, because this was a 6,500 square foot restaurant bar. So we did live events, we did bands, we did DJ nights, like we did karaoke, we did bingo, we did all the things, but we couldn't operate. You couldn't have people.
Right.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm calling it. Like, there's no reason. And our rent for that one was $7,200 a month, which was a lot of money to lose every month.
Yeah.
And so I just said, you know what? We're calling it, right? We squared our debts. I walked away with a little money in the bank, and we called it. Um, and so anyway, long story short, but so the sale didn't go through. But what happened was all of a sudden I had to adapt and overcome, which is what we do as business owners, right? And I learned a lot, and I decided my new goal is to help business owners to prepare for this, right? To raise awareness, to be shouting it from the rooftops, like, hello, you have a problem. You don't even know you have a problem, right? And so I wound up with my candy store. My partner that earned in for a few years decided she didn't want to do it. So she handed it back to me. So I had to go back and do some repairs. And then I decided, this is how I wound up in Charlotte. I'll wrap it up. But that I decided, what if I could take my business that's running here, remove all the headaches, all the things that aren't working, and do a reset. But go someplace that had tons of traffic, tons of people with lots of money. And be a place that I want to be, and do it strategically with exit in mind. What if I could prove that that's possible, even for me, in a brand new place? Kind of like, Undercover Billionaire, where they go, or where they drop them and they have to figure it out. I was like, what if I could prove to all business owners, no matter where they are in their business, that they have an opportunity to make some changes to be able to sell, even if the broker said it's not possible. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. So I opened 2 stores down here. The goal is to be able to open 10 stores around Charlotte, have its own little ecosystem with a distribution center, some creative, some standard brick and mortar, build the brand, but be able to exit for FX in 2 years. So that's what I'm doing. I'm in the middle of it, and that's kind of my Everest. My Everest is my dream, and my goal is to help 1 million small business owners to develop and implement their exit plans.
Right.
It doesn't matter whether the exit's in 20 years or in 2 years.
Yeah.
You still need it. And that's my passion project, but I'm proving it can be done here for myself, and also going to benefit the rewards of that. So, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. But that brought me to Charlotte, where I met a whole new community of sub-2 students and investors here in a city that's growing by leaps and bounds. I'm implementing my business. I'm meeting other business owners. I'm working and doing partnerships with them. And I'm just establishing myself here. I haven't even been here a year, and I already have 2 stores. My plan is to have 8 this year. And I think strategically I can do it. This is what I'm pitching for my capital investment, for my deal maker. Thank you. And I'm like, you know what? I know how to do this. Because here's the thing, this is where I think the value is for business owners, is that they've done a thing for a long time. There's value there. Whether or not the balance sheet shows the number you think it should, there's intrinsic value in them, in what they've built. There's assets there that if you just liquidate, they disappear from the world like they never existed. When you break it down like that, right? Whereas if they were able to sell or bring in somebody to partner, right? Like, and this is where we bring in the whole sub-to world of business buying, right? Like to connect people who want to own with people who want to sell
Yes, yes.
and prep them like for creative terms to make it work for both sides. Like that's the end game, right? But the win is that the owner gets to retire, the new owner gets to invest into something that's going to stay and give to the world and give to the community that they're in and continue on. And so it's like legacy building for both sides,
Right, right.
you know? So anyway, that's what my all my dreams. So like, but I'm doing that in real time.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, so that's where I'm at. So like I'm doing the real estate, I'm doing the consulting, I'm doing some organizational things as leadership kind of here in Charlotte. I'm helping my husband with the fix and flips and helping to manage him up there, here. I'm doing a lot of things, but like,
All the things.
Tracy,
yeah.
I always thought of you as a superstar in this community, sub two. Let me tell you, man, we have to bring you back. We
Yeah.
have to bring you back to hear on your journey. This is amazing.
Well, I mean, I'm like so excited. I have to just do more content. That's what I have to do. I have to be talking about this more. And I'm so glad you gave me the opportunity to talk, 'cause to share what I'm doing. Because here's the thing, like we were talking yesterday on the call about purpose, right? That we all have a bigger purpose. And for some, it's just retiring their wife so she could mother their children, right? And there's some, it's a longer term. I want to retire my parents, or I want to have a legacy from my family so they don't have to worry about all the things I did, or whatever that is, right? But having a purpose makes it worthwhile to get up every day, right? And for me, like the purpose is I just love business, and my kids are grown, right? They don't need me as much. I get to enjoy them, but they don't need me they're grateful that I'm not at their house every day. Being like, what are you doing today? They're just so grateful I'm just busy doing the things that I love doing, right? I love this stuff. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have bad days. Of course you do. You have staff or customers and you deal with people, you're going to have a bad day.
Yes.
We live in a natural world where things happen, right? But I'm so grateful that I get to have this life and learn the things and build this thing and also enjoy it at the same time. So my big thing is I want my husband to be here. I want to travel the country. I want to meet business owners all over the place. I want to meet sub two and community members and investors everywhere. I want to do all these things, and I want to help people to achieve their goals,
Yes,
Right.
yes.
right? And achieve mine at the same time. And I think that's possible.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing so much information with us. Really
Oh, that
appreciate
was a lot. I know I talked a lot, but and I hope it was interesting. I hope it was like,
Right.
because there's nothing we can't do if we want to do it, right? And if we're willing to do. And you're going to get bumps and bruises along the way, but the idea is to not give up, right?
And you've powered through. You've had it all. You've had the bumps
Oh
and
yeah. Yeah, but that's okay because I mean I think that's what you need to do, right? That's prepping you, that's purifying you, right, for the next thing that's going to be big.
right.
The next bump that's coming. The stamina, right? The weights get heavier as you go, not lighter,
exactly.
right? But I so appreciate you guys giving me the chance and for listening and being such gracious hosts. So thank you so much. I hope everybody follows like you guys are shining lights in the community. I just appreciate you so much.
Thank you,
you,
Tracy.
Tracy.
How can anybody find you? Like, if they want to learn about how to exit their business, where can they go to find
So
you?
I am the Tracy Gunn everywhere. So I kind of was it was blessing to be able to get all my social media things the same. So you can find me anywhere. And we have a business called Exitable, which really just means you don't want to be imprisoned by your business anymore, right? That means you're building something that you cannot either still own and not be there, right? Kind of like owners.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Imagine being an owner and not an operator. How
Right.
lovely. Isn't that a dream we all can relate to, right? And so they can reach out to me anywhere. I have some great tools. I'm actually running a 2-day class in Richmond, Virginia in person because I think being in the room with other business owners is really helpful versus Zoom.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, business owners speak the same language.
Right.
we get it. And so just like real estate, like people in sub two, we speak the language, right?
Right.
TC, we know what that means, right?
Yeah.
Sub two, novation, rep, we get it because we speak that language.
Right.
Business owners have their own language, their own pains that are similar, and
Yeah.
they've all overcome them differently.
Hmm.
And they will overcome the new challenges differently. And being together really, I think, magnify and like multiply the result. So we're doing a live in person on March 20th and 21st. So if anybody's interested or knows somebody, we all know a business owner that is tired, right? That needs a new lease and needs some hope, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's my big new thing I'm excited about. Plus deal maker, I'm going to go and pitch for some a capital partner, and I'm so excited. Like this is way outside my comfort zone. Like I never thought to go ask people for help like that. So I'm like really feeling really blessed and excited to be able to do it.
Very excited for you too.
Thank you. I know. I'm like, you'll be cheering me on. I know.
Of course we are. Of course we are.
And
Tracy.
then, who knows? Candy store in Atlanta next. Who knows?
Right, right.
I'm on board, right? There's
Yeah.
more than one way to invest and multiply your money.
Good.
Yes, yes, yes.
Actually, no, not really. Certain people are addicted to candy.
I am. That's why I want to have a candy store.
Well, you know what? It cures you for the most part, right? Like, so I still eat candy, but I'm not all day, every day because I try to bring my lunch because if I don't, then I do, right?
Right.
But my kids grew up in a candy store. So I've had the first candy store is 18 years old this year. So it's a while. So my kids grew up working in the store. I fired them from the store. Like they know. So when I go visit them now, they're all over the country. I'll be like, "Do you want candy?" And most of the time they're like, "No." Because they've been able to have whatever they want for
Right.
as long as they can remember. So you
Right.
do kind of, it's like allowing yourself to just have as much as you want, and eventually you're like, "Meh,"
Right, right, right.
right? So that's good, but it would be good. You need to own a candy store. You need to own a candy store.
Thank you,
All
Tracy.
right, Tracy, thank you so much for spending the morning with us. And, we'll be, looking forward to it. And again, or to our viewers, Tracy was amazing, trailblazer, looking for exiting, if you're interested in exiting your business or, just getting tips from Tracy, reach out to her, the Tracy Gunn, on all the social media platforms.
Yep.
So again, like, subscribe, hit that notification button so you don't miss another podcast. Yeah, come
Why
back.
not?
Come and have a conversation with us again. Thank